Good morning. It is November 29th, 2018. We're here today with Gary Bird. I'm Deb Lowrance, and we're here for the Whitley County Oral History Project, and we're today going to be talking about the Veterans Marathon. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, good morning, and thank you.
So how did this project come about?
Well, at the time, I was a very active runner, and of course I hung around runners, but I'm also a veteran of the United States Army. So during my long runs with my buddies, we discussed about putting on a marathon. There was no marathon in this area of the state, and we thought there was a need for one. So we began to brainstorm on various locations and so forth, and two of us are kind of historians of sorts, and we began to look at being a veteran, running, and Columbia City seemed to be the hot spot for a marriage there. So as we know in history, Woodrow Wilson was the president of the United States during World War I, and his vice president was Columbia City's own Thomas Marshall. So assuming that Tom probably talked to Woodrow once in a while about things, that we thought that at the end of World War I, they declared this date in November, not Veterans Day, but Armistice Day. And that was signal of November 11th at 11 p.m. was the end of World War I. So what fitting was to think that maybe Thomas Marshall had some input of that, being from Columbia City. So we decided that it might be a good start to have what we call the Veterans Marathon. And some people will say that's a gimmick, and it is. It's a gimmick.
Well, and that's fine. It gets people here.
Yes, and so we wanted to give people that hot spot to go and visit. So here we are, a bunch of runners, and we wanted to have it here because of the Armistice Day, which later then became Veterans Day. But even to add to that was our own Ralph Gates, the governor of Columbia City. And Ralph Gates started the Veterans Affairs program in Indiana. And so what more to add to this sauce of having a Veterans Marathon was not only to have a national flair to it, but also a local Indiana flair to it. And of course, then we can say, well, myself might be the local, being the runner / veteran amongst the group, but it just seemed like Columbia City was the place to have this event. So then we began to map a course and pull together my team at the time, which, by the way, was Judd Pearson, who's works for the DNR here in town, and then we had Mark Green, who's the head of the Parks Department here in Columbia City, a person named Stacy Bonsweiger, and I believe Stacy's actually from South Whitley, but she was an active runner, and then Tom Landis, who's a local business owner and also was a runner here in Columbia City, and then of course my wife. Every guy has to have that.
Oh, sure.
That girl that runs the show, and so we're the ones that kind of got together and decided that Columbia City was going to host the Veterans Marathon on November 11th of that particular year. And so we presented that to the mayor and the council and several other entities around town to let them know what we were proposing and what we'd like to do. And at the time, the city was just all in about having the Veterans Marathon, the police departments, the county, just everybody came out of the woodwork wanting to help. And it was almost to the point to where it was a little overwhelming on what, how many people wanted to help and what you were going to have to do. So, but each of these people that I named earlier had responsibility. Judd Pearson was in charge of the course. So he mapped out the course. We wanted the course, it was a Boston qualifying course. Oh. So we wanted to have hills, where Boston has hills. We wanted to encompass as many historical points along the course as we possibly could. So and we're going to link a video for you to look, but there's several marks where in the War of 1812 where there was an Indian battle, and so that's on the course. Of course, we go past the VFW, we go past the American Legion, amongst other landmarks around the course, so that people can kind of get a flavor about. The course is also a veterans course. Stacy Bonswager at the time was in charge of all the aid stations, and so she was responsible for making sure there was water and food and those sort of things for individuals. Mark Green helped with the safety of the course, and so he worked very closely with the city police department, the county police department, to make sure all the safety aspects of the course was in place. My wife Joanne worked with several business owners, and because she has her own business downtown, worked with several business owners on making sure that they were very patriotic that day, and that we're going to bring a couple thousand people to downtown Columbia City, racers and family members, and that this is an opportunity from an economic standpoint.
Sure, yeah, small business.
Hotels.
Saturday.
Yeah, well, you want people to fill up hotels and restaurants, and hopefully they'll shop some. But those are common things that people travel out of town for. And then Tom Landis has a timing company where he would time the race itself. And so he was the official timer and an integral part in getting the course certified through the Boston Marathon and USA Track and Field, who's kind of the oversight for those races. And so over the years, we've kind of, we celebrated the 10th year of the race this year.
Wow.
And the first 4 years of that race was my watch, you can say. And I made sure and put a lot of time and effort to make sure that we celebrated veterans. Their numbers, reflected their branch of service. We made a special, we made everything as special as we could for family members who may have had a veteran in the past. Or current veterans that were running the race. And so we really wanted to go out of our way to make it a celebration. And at one point I wanted to make it more like a fall festival, a late fall festival. Sure. Difficult because it was opening deer season also in Columbus City. So I always had to warn my runners as they traveled through the countryside that, you may hear a gunshot or two, but it was perfectly safe. And so we chuckle about that from time to time. But again, the purpose of the history of the site of having it here in Columbia City was, the Wilson and Thomas Marshall history of Armistice Day, Veterans Day, and then also Ralph Gates having Veterans Affairs and working very hard on those, who was also a veteran, who worked very hard in his governorship to he even brought the American Legion from Washington, D.C. headquarters to Indianapolis as a headquarters. So he was very involved. So taking all these historical figures from Columbia City and putting on an event that we would be proud of for the future. And so that's kind of how we got started.
Way cool. Now, how do I put this? Are there a lot of veterans that run?
There's a percentage of, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12% veterans run. We actually have runners that come from all 50 states.
Wow.
And we've had runners from, Alaska, Hawaii. We've had them, all over. Another reason why this marathon works real well is it's at the end of the big ones, the Chicago Marathon, the New York City Marathon, the Columbus Marathon, the Indianapolis Marathon. So all these marathons. And if you're wanting to qualify for Boston, this gives you one last chance to possibly do so. And things happen. And as a previous marathon runner, you could train and do all the right things, but on the day of the race, it's how you feel. And you could get halfway through the race, and all of a sudden you just don't feel like it's all together today, and it may cause you to drop out, or you just don't run in the times that you want to run. So it's not that you're out of shape. You can make a decision during that time that maybe I'll try one more time as a marathon. And that's an example of two women from Maryland this year. These two women wanted to qualify for Boston. They were struggling with that, and they flew in from Maryland to run here in Columbia City to once again try to qualify for Boston Marathon. So that's just one example, but that happens every year where runners, with all the work that they put in to prepare, and it just didn't quite happen, they come here. And so there's a very high percentage. It's a small race. Marathon sometimes runs about 300 runners. We also have a half marathon, which is about the same volume. And then in the second year of the event, I added a 5K to give those spouses or friends or whatever to have something to do, because they can run a 5K or walk a 5K in 30, 40 minutes and still be done before the half marathon or marathon people would come by. And this would give them some activity as well. And that also draws a couple hundred individuals
Cool.
to the event as well. But we do have, I was trying to think, we've had international, we get a lot of Canadians come down to run the event. And so this little town draws quite the showing with it. They're not so much local runners as they are national and international.
Okay. For those of us out there watching that don't know, how long is a marathon?
A marathon is 26 miles, 385 yards, or 26.2 miles, if you want to convert that to the metric side of things. And we are, like I said, a U.S. track and field certified course. And what that means is that from 0 to 26.2, it is exactly 0 to 26.2. There's sometimes a misconception there that every mile marker is exactly a mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, 4 mile. And that's not, I will say it's very, very close, but whether it, in this day and age of GPSs and so forth, I get a lot of, the race director today, and even back when I was race director, get a lot of folks that say, well, it's longer or shorter or whatever, but the course is always measured in the rules that you use to set up the marathon course. The rule is that you measure by the shortest running distance. So then those that like to make sure they are running the shortest part of the course, that is actually the distance. So if a runner runs, say, like in the middle of the road, you may find yourself around the curves running further than you need to run. And so, yeah, your GPS would probably measure that a little longer. So we typically measure by the shortest means possible.
Okay.
And
so you're doing the inside of the curve and
correct. Or we'll have it. There may be special coning or markings to say that we want you to stay in this area because of, and those are basically safety reasons that we do that.
Sure.
It's not so much the shortest part of the course. It's just that from a safety perspective, it's been recommended that we run on this side of the road or the other side of the road to help with traffic and as well as the safety of the runners. So that may happen as well. But yeah, that's how the course is typically measured. And some of the bigger races, like maybe Boston or New York, they actually paint a blue line from start to finish. If you run on that blue line, you're going to be 26.2. I always tease folks, I don't paint the whole course on the blue line, but I always tease them about what did you run on the blue line, and they look at you like, I don't remember seeing a blue line.
There wasn't a blue line.
But that's how we measured it, and we do measure it. It's measured several times over the course of the time.
Cool. So, do you have someone special that starts the race, or is it change all the time, or?
Well, each race director has their own vision of the event, and this particular race has had 3 race directors, starting with me. And my vision at the time was the activities on the courthouse. I had a large tent set up on the courthouse, kind of a warming tent, and we had hot soup that was made by the United Methodist Church that is actually famous today. Runners love hot soup at the end of a run. I also pride myself that I had 4 of the most beautiful fall days that you could ever have in Columbia City. Temperatures in the 60s and low 70s and sunny, and I guess those 4 years I lived a good solid life because we had good weather. But so a lot of the events that we try to do, I wanted to be around the courthouse and center into the downtown area, and again looking to make it more of a festival to celebrate Veterans Day. And in some cases, I've always felt too that Veterans Day was kind of getting to be that lost holiday. We kind of joke that now Christmas starts on Halloween. Well, people tend to forget that, Pearl Harbor,
right.
Veterans Day, all these holidays that were to celebrate veterans is kind of coming to the wayside. So this was also a means to be able to kind of resurrect that and talk about that. And that's why and we're going to attach the video from the flag runners that are in Illinois, who promote the flag, and they actually have a company that installs flag and so forth, but they also are runners, and they promote the whole reasoning behind veterans and flags and being proud of being an American type of thing. And it's that was very interesting to me. And especially when they take you out on the course and they show it. Now, the course that they show in the video is not the current course that they have today.
Okay.
So just caution people when they look at that. It used to be just one big loop for the marathon. Now it is a 2-loop course. And again, that was made, I believe that was made mostly on safety and just getting volunteers. I think we all experience where we want to do the biggest thing in the world, and it's hard to get people to want to spend time, and especially if the weather's just a little bit inclement.
And you never know with November.
Yes, so, but the race has progressed. It's just celebrated its 10th year. We celebrated the Coast Guard this year, was the honorary. Back in the first day, being that I was an Army person, and specifically in the cavalry, I celebrated the Army, and the medals and the awards were pictures of a tank, and so being an Army. By the way, the awards are all made in Indiana. The awards are limestone that come right out of Bloomington, Indiana. And so, again, historically, we've tried to keep things locally, nationally, and statewide. So the awards are limestone, and they're in the shape of Indiana. And so they come right out of Bloomington quarries, and then along with the metals that they use, those are made by a supplier in the Bloomington area that makes all of our metals. So we try very, very hard to keep it local, keep it American, and let everybody have a piece of that action, I guess, as far as
that's very good.
So
very good. So I know the track used to come right up Van Buren, come past here, past the library, and out, way out. It went out clear to Raper Road, and
and it actually went to Kaiser Road, which where I used to live. Unfortunately, it was on the east end of Kaiser, not west. But again, when we were putting the course together, if you think about historical landmarks at the time, we wanted. Of course, we started at the courthouse and ended at the courthouse. But we wanted that historical flavor, and we also wanted to show the best part of Columbia City that we could. And so that running past the library and the YMCA, and then running out towards the battleground areas out
by De La Balme. And
we wanted to. And so, how do you get there? And And so you kind of weasel away. And again, we try to stay off of main highways and roads so that we're not disrupting traffic and day-to-day activities. And I realize that we can't do that for everyone at that time of morning and day. It's going to interrupt someone's life, but we try to warn them ahead of time. But again, we run out that way for historical reasons, and then back into town. And at that point, we run right past the VFW and the Masonic Lodge, and then we're back into town again. Passing by the Fire Museum and the Trailhead, the haunted jail, which there's a few of us that really would like to see that restored to historical nature. But then again, you pass through downtown and start out towards the western parts of Columbia City, and again we're running out past the old county home and some of the places out that way. And again, the reason why was that was really the only place that we could find some hills that would emulate those of Boston. And so there are 3 hills that kind of resemble that of Boston, and they actually are about the same mile markers as Boston. So,
neat.
So that was kind of the reason we went that way, is to encompass those hills. But again, before I maybe runners who are looking for a good marathon, those hills have been eliminated from the course now. They have changed the course. Actually, my son, who's still an avid runner, redesigned the course to help with safety and volunteers, and he actually decided to take the hills out of the equation and made it a 2-loop course. It's a little bit flatter than what it used to be. So, the hills was always some good comments from folks from around the country thinking that Indiana's flat, and then they come across those hilly parts out of Old Trail Road. Realize Old Trail Road is pretty
Yeah,
hilly.
that's pretty hilly.
But those have been taken out. But again, those were it was everything that we did with the race was tied to as much as we could a historical or a reason or a purpose. We wanted to make sure the course really had a purpose to it, and we really weren't looking to make it extremely fast. We wanted to emulate the historical things. We wanted to make sure it was very historical, and then mainly the main topic was that we wanted to make sure we celebrated veterans. And so I think we accomplished those tasks in a number of ways through those years and continuing through today. That we still honor our veterans, and that the holiday will continue to be celebrated in some way. And as I said before, there's been 3. The race director after me was a veteran, and actually he was a wounded combat veteran, local, and he ran the race for about 4 years as well. And then we transitioned to a local running company who was always a sponsor for us. They've always been a sponsor, and they took over the race due to my own health issues and so forth. And so I've only been able to this year and last year be able to kind of get back involved. And my service dog Teddy and I are known for walking the 5K now.
Oh, very neat.
So we still participate and walk the 5K and enjoy that. And I think folks enjoy seeing the founder out there, still doing it. I'm not running anymore, but at least I'm out walking, and my service dog enjoys the competition of the walk. That's how I put it. So, yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. In many ways, thank you for your service, and thank you for initiating this wonderful marathon that brings a lot of recognition to not only to our community, but to our veterans as well.
Sure, and I appreciate that.
And we will superimpose a website where you can see some more history of the marathon.
Great.
All right, thank you.